Flying Brian here, out at the Rock Hill Airport. We're going to go see a World War II era B-17 and B-25. Come along, let's take a look at these old birds. The aircraft I'm here to see today are part of the Arizona wing of the Commemorative Air Force's 2024 13-stop U.S. tour, which starts here at the Rock Hill Airport, just south of Charlotte, North Carolina. I think I'm getting warm from what I see out the window. That's a B-17, so I am definitely in the right place. Although the B-17 was designed, developed, and built by the Boeing Aircraft Company, when America entered World War II in December of 1941, the U.S. Army Air Corps' appetite for the aircraft skyrocketed. Demand outpaced Boeing's ability to produce the aircraft. To meet the demand, Douglas Aircraft in Long Beach, California, and Vega Aircraft in Burbank were put to work building copies of the B-17 under license. This particular aircraft was built by the Douglas Aircraft Company and rolled out of the factory in Long Beach in late 1944 as serial number 4483514. I see designations for the 94th Bomb Group of the 2nd Air Division, the 92nd Bomb Group of the 1st Division, and the 398th Bomb Group, also of the 1st Division, and 3 film credits. The U.S. Army Air Force officially took possession of the aircraft on 13 March 1945. With the war nearly over in Europe, the Army sent her to the Pacific Theater. By September of 1945, Japan had surrendered, and World War II finally came to an end. It remained in Japan during the post-war occupation. In 1947, the aircraft was refitted with camera equipment, sent south to Clark Field in the Philippines, and spent her time flying photogrammetry missions. That's the number 4 engine turbocharger. In 1950, the aircraft returned to the States, assigned to the Eglin Air Force Base in the Florida Panhandle. There, she underwent another refit. The camera equipment came out, and air-sea rescue equipment went in. A lifeboat was strapped to her belly, and when necessary, it was dropped and parachuted into the ocean to help rescue sailors and downed airmen. But that service was short-lived. She was again modified and served with the 3,215th Drone Squadron at Patrick Air Force Base in Florida. Outfitted with test equipment and remote control systems, she was flown out to the Eniwetok Atoll in the Pacific. There she participated in Operation Greenhouse, a series of nuclear weapon tests. She carried operators who flew radio-controlled aircraft into the blast area to measure the effects of the nuclear test on aircraft and the atmosphere. The tale tells me she belongs to the 457th Bomb Group of the 1st Air Division, and the letter F tells me this was Ship F of its squadron. However, I'm not entirely sure this aircraft served with any of these units. By early 1959, the U.S. government was done with the aircraft. It was sent to the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona, commonly called the Boneyard. It's where old aircraft go to die. Is that Leroy in there? However, before the scrapper was able to tear her apart, the Aero Union Corporation of Chico, California got a hold of her. They registered her as November 9323 Zulu, outfitted her with water tanks, and for the next 18 years, she fought forest fires all over the U.S. Finally, her long, tough career was coming to an end. On 14 January 1978, she was donated to the Confederate Air Force, now known as the Commemorative Air Force. Here's a close look at the Sperry Ball turret. Sporting two M2 50 caliber Browning machine guns. It was the CAF who christened her Sentimental Journey and emblazoned her with the pinup of Betty Grable. The CAF began restoring the old bomber to a World War II wartime configuration. They added 4 operational gun turrets and an old Norden bomb sight. They got the bomb bay doors working again and outfitted the navigator and radio operator stations. Nowadays, her life is a bit easier. She spends her time on display out in Arizona, being lovingly looked after by the technicians of the Commemorative Air Force, or traveling around the U.S. showing herself off, doing her best to remind people of the risk and sacrifice America's 18 to 22-year-old airmen endured during World War II. Oh, I almost forgot. She even has a few film credits to her name. This aircraft appeared in Steven Spielberg's film 1941. If you're from Texas, you might remember an ad campaign called Don't Mess with Texas, which featured this aircraft.
If you throw trash on Texas highways, somebody up there is going to be watching.
Go squadron later. We've got one inside. Let's make an impression on this guy. Over.
And you don't want to mess with the Texas Confederate Air Force. So don't mess with Texas.
On the way.
Here in the bomb bay, the A4 bomb release units are still installed. These little black boxes are what release the bombs from their shackles and pull the safety wires, allowing the bomb to arm itself as it fell. There's a look up into the radio operator's compartment. And forward to the flight engineer's area. This airplane is 80 years old, yet still remains very pleasing to the eye. Over here is another World War II era bomber, this one being a North American B-25 J model, which is the final version of this aircraft. This one was built mid-year in 1944 in the Kansas City plant. Here's an interesting tidbit of history. Shortly after the newly minted serial number 4335972 rolled out of the factory, she took to the air for the very first time when company test pilot Eddie Fisher took the aircraft aloft to assure everything was in good operating order. Eddie flew the aircraft for a little more than 2 hours. What's so significant about that flight? Well, that first flight of this old warbird took place on 6 June 1944, D-Day. Over on the beaches of Normandy, France, Allied forces were pouring ashore, and the invasion of Europe had just begun. But there was no time to waste. The U.S. Army Air Force badly needed the airplane. By 24 June 1944, the brand new aircraft was at the Hunter Air Force Base in Savannah, Georgia, the first stop that would take her on a trek to Africa and eventually the Isle of Corsica. Assigned to the 4th Ferry Group, she flew south to Morrison Field in Palm Beach, Florida. From there, she made her way down across the Caribbean, into South America and Brazil, then across the Atlantic to the African continent. By October 1944, she was part of the 319th Bomb Group, based on the island of Corsica. Before 1944 was over, the aircraft had flown 15 missions into Italy as ship number 18 of the 437th Squadron. the number she still carries today. When 1945 arrived, the 319th Bomb Group was sent back to the U.S. and transitioned to the A-26 Invaders, leaving the B-25s behind. This meant an end to her combat missions. Looking inside the bomb bay, this one not only has the A4 release units in here, but there's a bomb shackle here hanging from the rack. Here's a close-up. In this photo, you can see a shackle clipped to the bomb's suspension lugs. In this diagram, you can see the safety wire that runs out to the front and back detonators. The wire prevents them from activating while in the airplane. The ring in the center of the wire is attached to the shackle. It's hoisted into the bomb bay, and the shackle hung from the bomb rack. Just before release, the arm lever is electrically tripped, trapping the safety wire in the shackle. When the bombardier drops, the release lever is electrically flipped. The shackle releases and the bomb falls from the aircraft. If the arm lever was tripped, the safety wire is retained in the shackle, stripping it from the bomb as it falls away, allowing the detonator to arm after falling around 500 feet. If not, the safety wire falls with the bomb and it never goes active. The war was over by September of 1945, and the airplane entered into a period of mixed non-combat uses. Things like flying military staff or currency and proficiency flights. In 1959, the aircraft ended up at the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona, and as I said before, the place where old airplanes go to die. However, in 1960, a company called National Metals in Phoenix purchased the airplane and registered her as November 9552 Zulu. They sold her to Dothan Aviation in Dothan, Alabama, who turned her into a spray plane. She passed through several owners between 1960 and 1999 before being acquired by the Commemorative Air Force Arizona Wing in December of 1999. The group re-registered the aircraft as November 125 Alpha Zulu, restored her to a wartime configuration, and here she sits today, big and beautiful, helping Americans to remember our World War II aviation heritage. I completely enjoyed looking at these beautifully restored old warbirds, but all good things must come to an end. And today's Explorer is no exception. So, until the next time, remember, life is a journey, enjoy the ride, and thanks for watching.